Welcome to this press briefing where we need to give an update on the second deadly bomb attack that occurred in Mpigi. As you're all aware, we registered another serious incident of a second deadly bomb explosion on a bus belonging to Swift Bus Company Limited. This serious incident occurred at Lungara in Mpigi district. Of course, our response teams, including bomb experts with our other experts from counterterrorism, intelligence, and investigations, responded to this incident after the scene had been cordoned and after some of the victims had been evacuated. Now, we would like to inform you that the incident was confirmed as an act of suicide bomb attack, where the attacker died in the explosion, and during that explosion, we had an injured passenger who was a police officer. Now, this is the first incident where a suicide operative concealed a suicide vest and belt and detonated it on a bus. The facts that we've also obtained do indicate that the attacker was initially in company of another suspected terrorist, and they both boarded Swift Safari's bus under registration number UAU 989T that was loaded with 52 passengers from Chisenyi bus terminal heading to Ishaka Bushenyi. The bus left Kampala at around 4 p.m. and made a first stopover at Maya checkpoint. It proceeded shortly after a distance of about 2 kilometers. The accompanying passenger asked the conductor to allow him disembark from the bus and go back to Kampala because he was needed to process his travel documents to enable him travel abroad. So 2 kilometers after Maya checkpoint, the bus stopped again and the conductor allowed him to disembark. It was after a short distance, it was after a distance of 8 to 10 kilometers at a place identified as Lungara, that is Maziva Ward, Mpigi Town Council in Mpigi district, that the bomb exploded in the bus. The suicide bomber was identified as Matovu Isaac, a 23-year-old male adult and resident of Kamuli A Zone in Chireka. He died on the spot. He was on the wanted list of members of the ADF sleeper cells, and we were tracking him as Mustafa. The immediate neighbor of the suicide bomber was a female passenger, but surprisingly enough, she escaped without any serious injuries. However, the passenger who was seated behind the suicide bomber, that is our Superintendent of Police, who is the acting Regional Police Commander, Greater Bushenyi, identified as Adrian Kwete Gereza, sustained serious injuries that were coming from the front because of the passenger sitting in front of him. He was traveling from Kampala to Bushenyi, and he was given first aid by the Red Cross team and rushed to one of the major hospitals in Kampala, where he's actually undergoing treatment. So our joint team of bomb and forensic experts managed to locate remnants of the bomb materials on the deceased, that is Matovu Isaac. We got a detonator on his seat. Metallic bearings were all over him, and several wire gadgets were also found on him. So it is only the deceased, Matovu Isaac, and Adrian Kwetegereza, the police officer, who sustained, the other one died, this one got very critical injuries. The other 50 passengers, interestingly enough, did not have any serious injuries with them. So both the conductor and the driver were being interrogated, especially on how the suspected bomber smuggled this improvised explosive device and the detonator onto the bus. They claim that they carried out very thorough checks after the messages on vigilance were issued, and they are suspecting that probably after the suspected suicide bomber had gotten his seat next to the window, they could have smuggled the bomb and the detonator through the window, but that is, we shall establish that in the process of investigation. So the 50 remaining passengers were not hospitalized, and we've obtained statements from all of them. Now, our task team has also established from the hallmarks of the attack and the bomb materials recovered, a high connectivity of this attack to the attack that occurred 3 days ago in Komamboga. This implies that the individuals or groups of individuals that are preparing these improvised explosive devices are the same group of attackers. So far, they are using different strategies of attacks. We've now proven that they are using suicide vests and belts, and this also confirms the suicide vest which we recovered in Pader. That was supposed to be used by the supposed suicide bomb attacker, the late Hamid Nsubuga. They are also using armed assailants on boda-bodas or motorcycles. These are the ride-along assailants. What happened in Komamboga shows that they are also using physical bomb attacks in form of packages that are carefully placed at venues, and they are also targeting soft spots. So we strongly believe the attackers are part of the sleeper cells in the country, inspired by ADF, in close collaboration with their funders. From our analysis, they are attacking soft targets at easily accessible locations, like the eating spots that you saw, public transportation like the bus, which means other transportations like taxis are also vulnerable. We also want to caution owners of places of worship, pedestrian areas that are crowded, those who are still stealthily opening bars and entertainment centers, and also those who are always in crowded places like markets and other trading centers are cautioned. Now, this also confirms the intelligence that we've been obtaining that these sleeper cells have been actively recruiting radicalizing, and researching on how to build improvised explosive devices. From the materials that we've recovered, it shows how they have been recruited, radicalized, and instructed on how to carry attacks in Uganda. Their motive is clearly ideological and out of hatred by the ADF. So we are also trying to carry an analysis that they have started with soft targets, but we believe that they could be having a very bigger plot of carrying out a major incident on a major installation. So the group has been active, especially this year, beginning around August 2021, where there are terror threats. They have been active since August 2021, and their activities have been strongly coordinated by one of the ADF commanders based in the DRC. We've identified him as Medi Nkalubo. He uses the name of Martin. He also calls himself MD. He calls himself Benjo. He calls himself Benjamin Franklin, Medley, and also calls himself the Punisher. So he's been hiding in the DRC for the last 6 years. He coordinated the terror incident in Padre district, targeting mourners at the burial of the late DIGP Lieutenant General Paul Lokech, but our task teams managed to foil that attack. And during that attempt, we managed to arrest an IED expert called Abdul Rashid Katumba, who was assembling the suicide vest for Nsubuga Hamid. We also had a courier identified as Hassan Ruangabo, was also arrested in that terror attempt. Ewan Nsubuga Hamid, aka or alias Young Midu, the would-be suicide bomber, escaped from Pader, but we managed to surveil him using our capabilities, and was put out of action in Chebando while on a VIP assassination mission. In addition, the same ADF commander, Medi Nkalubo, coordinated a failed attack or a failed attempt on Kawempe police station. He's behind the deadly attack at Komamboga, where a 20-year-old Nyinaneza Emily was killed and 3 others injured, as well as the suicide bomb attack on Swift bus that occurred yesterday at Lungala in Mpigi. So in our counter-terror operations, we've also been tracking down several operators involved in money laundering and terrorist financing. So far, we've managed to arrest 3 collaborators who were receiving money from the ADF sources and distributing it to their recipients, to their operatives and agents in the country. Amongst those arrested, we have Abdul Rahman YV, we have Sanyu Nachitende. These 2 have so far received $114,000, which we have been able to track. And they have distributed it to their recipients on behalf of the ADF. We've now managed to track one of the recipients who received funds to facilitate terror activities. She was tracked down and arrested in Hoima, Ewan Aisha Katshabe. So this brings to 3 those ones. But we are also interesting ourselves on funding that is being channeled through some of the petroleum companies and real estate dealers We are tracking down finances to a tune of US $400,000 through petroleum companies. And we are going to ensure that the proprietors, the agents and collaborators disguising as petrol dealers in the country are arrested and brought to book. Now, as you're all aware, during the same period, we managed to round up 13 rebel collaborators, 11 of whom were part of the hostile rebel group, the Uganda Homeland Liberation Movement, or Front. This is a front that has been active in the West Nile region and also around the Acholi sub-region. You remember in 2016, the leaders of this group, that is Openjuru Howard and his father Openjuru John, were behind the attacks on several UPDF detaches in Opit, on Gulu CPS, on the UPDF detach in Zombo, on the UPDF detach in Koch, that is Nebi, on the UPDF detach in Zeu, that is Zombo. However, they were successfully countered in all these attempts against the UPDF. The other rebel collaborators who were arrested, there is Mutumba Muhammad, Warom Felix, and Bamusingire Robert. Then we also briefed you on the two suspected Maimai Rebels, which is another hostile group in the eastern DRC, where two of them, that is Wambale Moses and Biakumbagare James, entered the country. These ones were arrested after they crossed into the country through an ungazetted area. So we want to assure Ugandans that despite these cowardly acts of terrorism from existing sleeper cells inspired by ADF, the joint security agencies remain committed with an unwavering resolve to protect Ugandans and visitors in the country. We are using strategies under the National Contingency and Response Plan of the joint security agencies, and also using the decade-long experience and capabilities that we've had in fighting and countering terrorism in the country to track down, first of all, the person who disembarked from the bus. We are already tracking that person. That is after the Maya checkpoint. And like we've indicated with the few arrests that we've made, we are continuing to work with our partners across the country and across the region, because there are very good terrorist cells that are existing in the East African region. One of these collaborators who were involved in money laundering even traveled from here up to Zambia and also returned. They were meeting a contact from South Africa. There are contacts they have been meeting from Tanzania, Kenya, the DRC, and so on. So probably they are trying to establish their cells within the East African region. But like we've always indicated, we have this level of preparedness. Despite these two incidents of deadly explosions, we want to assure Ugandans that we are doing everything possible within our means to ensure their safety and security. Now, in addition to that statement, we notice that despite our messages on promotion of vigilance and alertness to members of the community, still members, different business persons are not following, are not exhibiting vigilance. Going by what happened yesterday in the bus park, it really shows that there is still laxity in our level of vigilance and preparedness. Up to now, you still find people are gathered and not bothered about their safety and security. So we want to come up with a few measures on how to enhance vigilance following these attacks, these two attacks on soft targets. The public must know that attacks against soft targets are actually vulnerable, they are easy to exploit, and thereby ensuring a higher success for terrorists. Now, if you look at what happened in Komamboga and what happened in the bus park, these two settings and venues are an inviting atmosphere. First of all, for visitors, for customers, because it is usually open and spacious, but also very attractive for terrorists. Now, you'll notice that most of these soft targets, arcades, markets, places of worship, do have multiple entrances and exits, which are sometimes not even manned. And then you find people still accessing these places without putting their security into consideration. When you watch, we have places where the parking lots are located in very close proximity to maybe the eating place, and it is very, very easy for somebody to jump from the car, from the motorcycle, carry out an attack and back. So these are issues that we really need to take into consideration. Now, from the lessons we're observing, the sites at Komamboga and the sites at the bus terminal in Chisenyi, they do lack visible security guards and detailed screenings. These were not undertaken prior to entry. And sometimes you may not blame the security guards because some of them do lack the training. And even some of them go by the instructions of the owners of the venues and businesses, which is in conflict with their training. Some of these individuals actually lack the proper screening of individuals and cars. They cannot detect what explosives are. Some of these explosives are concealed in a number of metallic plastic containers and so on. So this is also another danger. So we are calling upon the business community, the private sector, to let them know that based on what has happened in the country in Komamboga and Lungala, they have a role to play in the detection and prevention of these attacks on their businesses, on their premises, and all these other places. But the first intelligence we want to give them is that such threat actors will always carry out some sufficient surveillance on the venues that they intend to attack. And this happened in Komamboga from the information that we do have. So therefore, it is always important that business owners, proprietors, take interest in the movement of persons around their businesses. Whereby if they detect any suspicious behavior, they need to interest themselves. There are people who will start, they will start inquiring about the operation of that very business. They'll want to study the access controls. So people who come with who are keen on the business should attract your attention. Then increasing security awareness amongst staff is important. Why we are talking about this is that one of the waitresses at Komamboga, saw very well how the three assailants, attackers, came with a package, which was in form of a polythene bag, and she was not bothered at all. She saw them place it even below the table, not on top of the table. And even when they were leaving, she didn't take interest to find out whether the package was with them or was left behind. We continue to advise the private sector and the business community, among others, to install and utilize CCTV systems. It helps in identifying the planning activity by some of these terrorists. So once you have them and are closely monitoring this, it's important. The danger with the manner in which some businesses are installing the CCTV is they are using manual processes. The CCTV records. There's nobody who is monitoring it. Then at some stage, they come and then they try to review the footages after 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. Now that is not okay, because you cannot get to clearly monitor any planning activity on your business. Now, the areas we are talking about are basically on vigilance, ensuring that new personnel are well screened. Security guards should be unpredictable in their patrols. Constant engagement of persons around your business, inquiring from them. In most cases, we notice that sometimes when strangers or criminals come to your premises and you try to inquire from them, some of them are panicky, and you can see them walking away immediately and things like that. So it is always good to engage persons around. It can help you intercept a potential attacker. It's good to be on the lookout for people who are taking pictures in places like the access doors, security checkpoints. Those who are outside the category of tourists, they'll try very much to take photographs of these other places. Then watching out for incidents of impersonation, where somebody puts on a uniform similar to that of the staff at the workplace, and so on and so forth. Then there is the last, watching out for last-minute movements, where now they are actually carrying weapons of assault or and other dangerous weapons like IEDs and so on and so forth. So this was that brief update. I want us to do Uganda, and then we wind up. Person we arrested yesterday. This is the lady we arrested yesterday, Katshave Aisha, whom we arrested from Hoima. She has been a recipient of money that has been coming through. I think you will get better pictures from outside here. So she was actually arrested yesterday. These things have not been printed very well, but now this picture is not very clear, but this is the deadly coordinator who is based in the DRC. He's called Medi in Karuvo, the Punisher, AK, so and so. He has so many names on him. You'll get a better picture in form of a soft copy. and then you'll use that. So he has been the one behind, he has been the mastermind behind this new wave of terror, and coordinating the sleeper cells that we are having here. Then this is YV Abdul Rahman, one of those recipients of money from ADF, and has been passing it on. Together with the Sanyu, they received $114,000 over a period. So he's been one of those who are arrested and is actually with us. Then we have Sanyu Nachitende. This one traveled up to Zambia and met a contact from South Africa. So we also arrested her. She's actually with us in our custody, and we continue to track them down. The other suspects are members of the rebel front from West Nile, but the leader of that front, this picture is not very clear. This is Openjuru Howard, aged 44 years. He's the one who has been behind the soft target attacks on UPDF detaches in Gulu and in the West Nile region. He's amongst those 8 whom we picked from Unjeru, amongst the rebel collaborators, and so on and so forth. This is the pastor called Bishop Jacker Michael, who was harboring them in Unjeru. We've also had him actually arrested. So let's do Luganda, and then we get your questions, a few of them, and we wind up. Whether it is the same Abdul Rahman who was connected to the Usafi Mosque. The people who were arrested in the Usafi Mosque were all charged, apart from 2 who are still on the run. So we cannot say that he's the one, because we charged the ones whom we arrested to court. But regarding Usafi Mosque, there are still 2 who are wanted in connection with those cases of terror. Now, once there is a failed attack, it means that that particular target was being focused on. So if the bomb did not go off, then, I mean, why should we get to come out and start talking about it and so on and so forth? It was a failed attack on Kawempe. And we gave out that information in passing. There was not any collateral damage. There was no significant impact in that area. Now, on some of the tactics and methodologies, of course, we use, we know we have different capabilities and tactical responses. Now, when you start giving away some of these capabilities that you do have on how you track down some of these terror suspects, then you're giving away too much. So we leave that as one of our classified methods that we don't give out, but we rely a lot on popular intelligence, whereby we have a number of sources of intelligence within the community. A lot of cyber intelligence and counterintelligence. Those capabilities do exist with our teams, but we won't go there a lot. Now, somebody was also trying to ask whether the country should worry. Of course, the fact that we've not raised an alert level, we are still working within our appropriate level of security preparedness and responses. That shows that these are situations that we shall be able to manage. Some of these arrests that we are making is out of those capabilities that we actually do have. So we are using our tactical teams for now. We don't see why we should raise an alert level and start closing some of these crowded places like markets, arcades, and so on and so forth. People have just come out of the lockdown and are starting to promote their businesses. What we simply are advising the public is that this is a matter of security and safety that touches each and every one. Each one has a role to play. That's why we are urging the private sector, especially the business community, to help Ugandans and also help security by also being vigilant and alert at their places of work. The name of the petroleum companies, we have them, but this is restricted information. And then, of course, it was not a sophisticated improvised explosive device because the area that it covered was not an expanse. Remember, even the one that they used in Komamboga covered a radius of 5 meters. So even this one, you look at the front seat and then the back seat, because the point of impact was on the very seat of Matovu Isaac and where Adrian, the police officer, was seated.